Hey, today we're talking business development with Kelly Kennedy. So, if you're running a business or you want to start a business or you're in business, today's the show you want to tune into. Today, live with myself, Keith Bilous, and Kelly Kennedy. And hey, he's from Edmonton. Don't hold it against him.
Hi, I'm Keith Bilous, and this is Live in the Lab. All right. A little bit of weirdness in front of the camera there for anybody who's watching, because I'm like, hey, where's the button? Where's the button? I can't get it going. How did you go viral on TikTok? You were on America's Got Talent. How much did you get paid to be on AGT? Oh, you didn't get paid. Keith and Steve here in Live in the Lab.
You're a great interviewer. I love it.
48 miles, 48 hours. And not just once. You ain't seen nothing yet. I hit 50 last time, and I'm like, yeah, things are a little different than they were 10 years ago. So trust me, things are to keep. You have no time for the BS that much of society seems to put on the table. Why is that? What you're talking about is real right now. There's just no bullshit here, but it's just real. We brought you in with some Marley. I said, Joseph, let's talk music for a second. You said, Keith, oldies, 60s, 70s, and 80s. I've never talked to a sir before. Why are you a sir? In many ways, we're the same story. I came from nothing. You came from nothing. I think the old saying goes that if you want a trophy, you climb Everest. If you want respect, you climb K2. I've built an AI myself, and it's pretty fascinating when you can have a conversation with yourself with your own knowledge. Have you done that before? Why are we rushing to make these tools if they're all they're going to do is hurt humanity? Does the world need an Oppenheimer moment with AI?
What a fun show.
Hey, there we go. What's going on, nation? It's Monday. Oh, it's Monday. Yep, sure is. Good tunes. Kelly Kennedy sitting here with me in the lab talking business development. So if you are an entrepreneur, and I know that's why you're tuning into the show if you are, or actually if you're not, you're probably tuning into the Kelly show. You know why? Because Kelly has a damn awesome podcast. Apparently one of the biggest ones in the country. Yeah, we're in Canada. That's where we are. Sorry to say it. To all my friends out there, I'm sorry that we're stuck in Canada. Well, especially with our taxes and all the capital gains. Hold on. Nope. I said to myself, I wasn't talking politics today. Not going to get into politics. Not going to get into, even though I'm wearing red, no, I got blue underwear on. I stand on both sides. I'm a business guy. What more can I say? All right. So Kelly Kennedy's joining me in a couple moments. One thing I want to observe about Mr. Kennedy, for all my friends out there on the entrepreneurial side of things, the guy does an awesome job growing his podcast with sponsors. And I don't have any sponsors yet. Nope, no sponsors, but I thought I would take a stab at a few. And I thought I'd have some fun with it. Because of a conversation that we had this morning on the morning show with C. Marty Fit. And we talked about all these fantastic restaurants that we might find a certain demographic in across the United States. And I think they're my sponsors, actually. So let's just think about some of these sponsors that we can go after here in the lab. And Kelly, you might want to pay attention. The Golden Corral. There's one for you. Applebee's. And there's a certain, I'm going to leave the title out of this whole thing because there's a certain theme that rings true when I'm going to go knock on these doors of who might want to sponsor my show and who's sitting in these restaurants. Applebee's, Chick-fil-A, Chili's, Texas Roadhouse, Wendy's, Outback, Olive Garden, Red Lobster, TGI Fridays, Rainforest Cafe. Is it 1980? It's true. Is it 1980? Is it 1978? This is the ultimate list of baby boomer restaurants. Yeah, true story. The Cheesecake Factory. Think about all these fantastic restaurants that are just across North America. The Rainforest Cafe and those animatronic things. I think a few people listen to this show in that demographic. I'm suspecting because I tickle on the edge of it. The great thing is that I was talking with C. Marty this morning is that when we're making this content here in the lab, we appeal to that edge and then we appeal to this edge and we sit right in the middle here. C. Marty's down in the old millennials. I'm up on the edge of the Gen Xers. I'm wondering where Kelly is. I'm thinking. And then we got the old baby boomers hanging out of the old Applebee's, hanging out of the old Red Lobster, hanging out of the old Olive Garden. When we talked about that list this morning, and I'm bringing it up because I invite you to go back and tune into the morning show today if you haven't heard it. And if you're hearing this on the podcast later, go check out the 5-minute bit. Funny shit. Because it'll make you feel quite nostalgic. I'm telling you, you're going to, yes. And then you're going to ask yourself, how many of those restaurants have you eaten in with either your parents? Speaking of parents, yesterday, Mother's Day. And I bet you if you're tuning into this, you might have taken your mom to one of these restaurants on that list. So I invite you to check it out. Baby Boomers' best restaurants that still exist today. This is a bit. This is just a bit we're going to cut up on YouTube so we can drive traffic around this, the nostalgia, this whole effect. All right. So remember, mornings in the lab, we go Monday to Friday, mornings 8 o'clock Eastern time till 9 o'clock Eastern time. Then we got a loop going after that. And we are celebrating this Thursday, Kraski's Creator Rankings. Thinking, what? Yes. So John Kraski, big creator on LinkedIn, one of the big dogs, big dog, was in the lab a couple weeks ago. And we had some fun. And we have partnered with John to do Kraski's Creator Rankings, which means we're going to sit back and we're going to celebrate all of the awesome creators on LinkedIn. Every morning as it is, we take the spotlight. You know what we like to do. We take spotlight and shine it on somebody else and just celebrate them. So every single morning in our creator spotlight, and then Thursdays, we're going to just celebrate creators all across LinkedIn. Everybody spends a lot of time celebrating the big ones. And there's nothing wrong with that. But nobody spends enough time, frankly. Nobody spends enough time celebrating those that move the needle collectively. So tune in Thursday, Kraski's Creator Rankings, Thursday morning, mornings in the lab with myself, C. Marty Fit, and friends. And maybe Kelly Kennedy will join us sometime. But he is in Edmonton, and he's probably sleeping at that time, I suspect. Are you sleeping at that time, Kelly Kennedy? What's going
goodness! On? After the game last night, do I need to sleep or what?
You know what? It's okay. We're gonna get it out of the way right now because my team isn't playing.
Why? What happened to them, Keith?
Oh man! So the funny thing is, Kelly and Keith were introduced a few weeks back, and I politely said in the email to Kelly, in the video email, I said I was not going to be able to meet with Kelly because he was from Edmonton and he's part of Oiler Nation and all that. And I know that when I'm sure he's first looking at who is this jerk, and then our teams are going through the playoffs together, and as we can see, I am no longer in the playoffs, but Mr. Kelly's team is. So I got nothing to say, man. Good for you.
Well, temporarily anyway. Last night was bittersweet.
Yes, there you go. There you go. Listen,
but in all fairness, like you said, Canadians, we have to stick together, right? Like regardless of what way you look at it.
It's funny because I was paying attention to the recent, if you've heard this, the recent ad running on Sportsnet and up here in Canada, but the ad is basically, it's not working cheering against each other. So let's now cheer together, right? Because us against them, Canada has not won the cup in a long time. So let's start cheering collaboratively against each other. But anyways, Kel, thanks for joining me, man. I was looking forward to today's conversation. I know so I was looking forward to two things. You have weaved yourself into the fabric of business development here in the country. You are moving and shaking on that side of things. Plus, you also have a fantastic podcast. And I know I make fun of podcasts all the time, but you've had some great success with it. You got sponsors on it. You're monetizing it. So I'd love to learn about that. And I'd love you to teach Business Athlete Nation, what are some of the things that move the needle in business development? Because it's a broad term. Yet in many ways, maybe the most important term for a lot of businesses, because in my experience, Kelly, and I'm going to suspect you agree, but as an entrepreneur, if you can find yourself an awesome biz dev human, or if you are an awesome biz dev human, you can get a lot done with very little assets because you're tactical and you're strategic and you're like MacGyver, right? But Kel, welcome to the lab. What's shaking? Where do we want to start?
First off, the honor is mine, Keith. Thank you for having me here. It's an absolute pleasure to be here. And like you said, there's not a lot of content coming out of Canada. So congratulations for creating this show and doing something to make Canadians proud and putting Canadian business on the map, because I think there is an obligation, if you have the power to do so.
Yeah, thank you. I would agree with you. Yeah, I will admit that I don't necessarily focus on Canada. Our footprint is certainly global. It's nice to represent and be that face coming out of Canada, right, for my fellow Canadians. I will say, though, and I'm going to put it here on the table, it's hard to be in business in Canada these days, and it's only getting harder, and our country is not making it any easier. And I know we're not here to talk politics today, but that is certainly perhaps a conversation for another day, because this country is making it harder and harder for business people to get ahead, frankly.
It has not been easy, that's for sure. You can't give up. Like at the end of the day, what's the option? It's to give up, or it's to truck on through and wait for the next opportunity. And that's what I'm going to do.
Yes. So you join us from Alberta. You join us from Edmonton. We talk business development. So Is the podcast the main source of the business, Kelly, or is it the ancillary piece of it? Because it was my perception that it's your main focus, is it not?
It got really big, Keith.
Yeah,
It wasn't supposed to.
Yes, that's what I thought. Am I right? Because it hasn't.
It has. Yeah, yeah. So I'll run you through. So my main business is called Capital Business Development. And being a
Yes.
business development guy, I started a company in COVID thinking we can do business development better. So why not try it? And so that was where kind of all this started. And so I spent
like a fractional biz dev. So sorry to interrupt you, but I just wanted to make sure I was clear on that. Like your capital business development is if I'm looking for a biz dev person, I'm reaching out to maybe hire Kelly, right?
yes, you're hiring my company and we're doing it based on hitting actual goals, right? Like
Okay.
most people, when they hire business development, what they ultimately do is they hire a business development guy and they say, go find us business, right? And
Yes.
that's a great tactic, assuming you have the right person, they're going to go out and do that. But are they actually hitting your growth goals? So many companies, you hire a business development person, you hire a sales team, but what are they doing? Are they going towards an arbitrary growth goal or are you giving them real goals to hit? And so with Capital, I said, you know what? Give me the goal. Let me figure out how we're going to do that internally and we'll get you in the room with the right people to do it. And so that's ultimately what we sell is the opportunity to actually achieve growth goals and a tactical plan on how we're going to do it.
So, Kel, how are you different than an entrepreneur listening right now, a CEO listening right now? How is Kelly not a sales guy? How is Kelly and Kelly's team
Love
not
it.
a sales team?
Perfect. Perfect. I love this. You talked about business development. You said it's a very broad term. Dude, I am going to narrow it down for you. Business development is really about new opportunity, not existing opportunity, not repeat business necessarily, not somebody doing account management. But a good business development team is actually going to be consistently out there hunting for the new opportunities, getting you in front of new people, setting up those meetings, and then really teeing that up for that repeat business over time. But in my mind, business development should always be handed over to an account manager after the relationship is established, and they should go back to the beginning. And that's a problem with business development in the world as it stands today.
And Kelly, you'd also probably agree that biz dev is also exploring new areas of business too. Necessarily
Yes.
just what the CEO and the executive has predefined of what they think it is. They may think
Yeah. Well,
we have more four pillars of business, but you sit down and speak with them and understand that, hey, maybe there's some additional pillars we can explore with you to develop a business. No?
in my experience, what'll happen is that they hop on and they say, here's the opportunity. We want you to go after XYZ company because they're the leaders, right? But in my experience with most of the companies we've worked with, the real cream isn't with the best in the business. It's with all of those sub industries who have bitten off. They're working directly for the largest in the business, the largest industry. So in our case, probably oil and gas, but who your ideal targets should be most of the time is actually the step down. So it's the prime contractors who are working for that oil and gas company who have more than likely bit off more than they can chew and need that extra support. In my experience, they tend to be the better option. So yeah, it really is that like that blanket of sub industries that service that big industry that usually end up being the best value for most companies.
You said this came out of COVID.
Yeah. Okay. So the story of Kelly Kennedy and how I ended up in business development. And I always say on my show that business development chooses you. I was running from sales. I was running. I was so far. As a kid, I grew up on a car lot. I worked a car lot from like 16 to 19. And I remember being like 18 and saying like to the sales manager, I know these cars in and out. I could probably do this better than most of your salespeople. He's like, Kelly, I'm not hiring you. You're young. You don't know anything yet. Go get some sales experience and come back. And so that's what I did. I left for 6 months. I got sales experience and I came back and I said, now I know, bring me back and let me do it. And that was literally in 2008. Me and you both know what happened in 2008. My timing was absolute crap. But yeah, so that was the auxiliary in. And so I learned sales there. After that, I went and I worked parts sales for a number of years at a large heavy duty parts supplier for oil and gas companies. I did that for a bit, Fort Mac back and forth, and then ended up back in town working for another parts person. I got laid off around 2010. And I remember my sister saying, like, why don't you just go to college? Like, and I was like, I don't know what I want to do. Like, at the time, I think I was 20, 21. I'm like, I don't know what I want to do with my life. So I'm just going to go take business, because then maybe I can get an operations job and I don't have to work in sales anymore. And so when I went into business school, the whole goal was actually to run away from the sales world, and got out of college and ended up working for an inspection firm as a business administration, and ended up being an operations manager there for a bit. And then very soon they realized that I was actually pretty good at generating relationships. And so I remember my boss coming up to me at the time and saying, Kelly, why don't you come on and become our manager of operation, or sorry, our manager of business development? And I was like, dude, I don't even know what business development is. I remember Googling it. What is business development? This would have been about 2013, and just having no idea what business development even was. And so that was it, dude. The bug hit me. I learned it. I loved it. I fell in love with it. And I did that job for a decade. And then COVID hit, and it was like, okay, like my boss pulled me aside. He's like, I don't know what this next couple of years look like. Do you have any plans, Kelly? And I was like, well, maybe now's the time. And so that was that catalyst for me to launch Capital Business Development, and the rest has been history.
Business development to me, it always is, for me anyways, Kelly, has just been a different way of describing sales. Less salesy way, a less obvious way, a more mature way, it's a combination of sales and marketing and operations. There's a lot of things that go into business development to generate revenue, right? And relationships, which clearly you're good at, is part of that equation. But I was surprised to hear you say you're running from sales, considering I've known you all of 17 minutes and you're a great, you're a great communicator. You got a great podcast.
Yeah.
So those two things right there, like I've had a few people here in the lab, Kelly, they're like, oh, I'm not in sales. I'm like, no, but you're a great communicator. I'm like, yeah, but I'm not in sales. No, but you're a great communicator. They look at me like, huh? I go, dude, sales is just being a great communicator and putting words together to make somebody feel a certain way so that they inevitably say, hello, Mr. Kelly, here's my wallet. It's open. And they don't even know they're opening it. You don't even know you're asking them for it.
Sure. And I think sales is everybody's job in an organization.
Yes.
Like, don't get me wrong. I'm not saying that
Yeah.
business development people do not participate in the sales process. I would argue we are not sales people. The reason being, Keith, is that we are typically not the product experts. And
Right.
I would argue that the product experts, which actually, contrary to popular belief, is usually a project manager or a fabrication manager, a manufacturing manager, an operations manager, tend to be better at that actual close because they know the ins and the
Yes.
outs of the product. My argument is that business development people need to know enough to be dangerous, but we are not the experts. What we
Yes.
are an expert in is finding new opportunity, getting it to the door, building that initial relationship, being a part of that process, but then going back to the beginning, Keith, and doing that job over and over again. And the reason that this never happens, and I'm telling you, I'm trying to change the world. I really am. I'm trying to change the way that business development is done. Because the problem with business development, the way we do it today, is that your business development person is wearing the business development hat, like you said, the sales hat. They're usually also wearing the account management hat. Now, Keith, me and you, we've been around, we've been in business a while. Do you like golf?
I
Right?
don't.
Do you like lunch?
Well,
Do you
yeah.
like going out with your clients and having a great night?
Yes.
If your choice was to go and do that uncomfortable thing and go and find that new business, make those cold calls, make those digital introductions, do the social stuff, or to manage that account, go for lunch, go for golf, which one are you going to spend most of your time doing?
Yeah, we know the answer to that.
Exactly. And
Yeah.
so the problem with business development, the way that we do it today, is it's not separated in the way that it should. And I know I have business development people right now yelling at me saying, Kelly, stop it. Stop giving it away. I want to do golf. And I want to too. But there's a time and a place for that. And account management really should be done by somebody at the organization, whether that be a leader in the management, whether that be a dedicated account management rep. And as business development people, our obligation is to do that hard thing. It's to use our relationship building powers and our ability to find new opportunities, new product lines, new partnerships, and bring those to the door of our organizations. Because if we do not do that, the organization eventually does not have enough new leads, and you cannot consistently rely on accounts forever, because accounts can leave at any time for any reason. And we talk about that all the time on the show. Nothing lasts forever. And so you have to have that new opportunity coming in. And as business development people, that is really our job.
I've always thought as business development people, Kelly, as an early stage entrepreneur's best friend. It's your first hire.
Yeah.
You're hiring your biz dev before your salesperson. You're hiring your biz dev before your marketing person. You're finding somebody who has the ability to get you in the door, uncover opportunities, because as you as the founder or the person should be able to sell it anyways, but it's that person that could always be figuring shit out for you, right?
Yeah.
Before you're like, okay, it's now time to hire the sales team. It's now time to hire the account management team because the biz dev person's got me along far enough. But I have been, it's how I've grown my companies in the past, which is get it to a point of, okay, now I need MacGyver. Now I need Kelly
Yeah.
to come in and wear many hats for me and be able to pivot and say, okay, it's, you know what I mean? That to me is like, that's why when I was excited about today's conversation, I really drink this Kool-Aid and think every company, when you're starting out, needs to focus on a biz dev person.
They should be your biggest champion. If your business development person isn't bought in and drinking the Kool-Aid and your biggest fan, you need a different biz dev person because they really need to believe in your company, your products and services, frankly, almost more than you do.
Yes. Yeah, that's very true, isn't it? That's very true.
Yeah.
Yeah. So when are you specific oil and gas in the Alberta industry, or are you guys global? Are you guys anywhere in Canada, or do you focus on
So
industry, or how does your business work, Kelly?
we have no industry focus. Obviously, we're here in Alberta, so oil and gas tends to be some of our biggest clients. We've had the privilege of working with some of the largest maintenance companies here in Alberta. We've worked with robotics companies, we've worked with safety companies, we've worked with inspection companies. So there's not really a limit because in my mind, Keith, business development is the same. And a good business development person should not have to rely on past relationships in order to grow a business. So the reason that Capital Business Development does a really great job is we don't need those past relationships. Do we leverage them? Yeah, of course. We're going to leverage them if we have them, but we don't rely on that. What we did is we created a process that allows us to target any industry, any person, as long as it's business to business relationship.
Get into that. What kind of, how did you guys develop this process, and where did you start, and where does it sit today?
Yeah, so I didn't always believe that was possible, being the first part of it, actually. And so it really was when I went out on my own and I started to get these big wins under my belt with some of, the largest oil and gas companies in Canada, some of the bigger players, that it was like, holy crap, like a light bulb went off in my head. And it was like, business development is the same. The process is the same. As long as you follow a process, an active marketing process, and we can get into that, as long as you follow an active marketing process and you follow it consistently, week over week, month over month, you will get the results. You can almost bank on the meetings. And so that's why with Capital, we got to a stage where we even guarantee our meetings with our clients. Our complete contracts are based upon the amount of meetings we know it's going to take for them to hit their growth goals. So
really,
we were able to take a process and a strategy and get it to that level where we can actually sit down with the customer. We can identify who the ideal clients are, what it's going to take to meet with them, how many meetings and what their closure rate is. We'll even work with them to improve that value proposition if that closure rate is no good. And we'll work to actually accomplish real growth over our time together.
Let's dig into that, because I want to dig into the power of predictability. I know back at my old company, we were able to get to a point where we built a predictable revenue model where for every dollar spent, we knew we were going to get X in return. So when you talk about sitting down with your clients and being able to predict the number of meetings or predict the process along the way, peel back the onion for me on that, Kelly.
Sure. So over time, what we did is with every single contract we did, we tracked how many calls, how many digital introductions it took on average to achieve a meeting in their industry. And so we got it to a point, Keith, where with large scale oil and gas, we realized that it was like 29.6 meetings, 29.6 direct reach outs on average to close a meeting for a large scale oil and gas company. So
hold on,
there you go.
So 30 door knocks, like just so simple, 30 door knocks before you got in, or you actually had 30 meetings before you?
30 door knocks on average is what it takes on large scale industry to get your initial meeting.
Wow.
That's crazy, eh? And it's just the power of statistics, man. So many people are not tracking, right? So many people are just not tracking. With smaller industry, this is a great number. With medium industry, we were averaging it on 11. If you was a safety company just trying to get that construction company meeting, we were doing it on average with 11 direct reach outs.
So I want to hang on this for a second because I'm fascinated by sales in 2024. I'm fascinated by cold calling in 2024. I'm fascinated by this idea of personal branding in 2024, AI generated content, real, fake. Like it's changing. Like I find myself when people cold call me, I'm like, I give that basically somebody a 3-word response now. Who are you? Because I find in a digital world, if you can't take the time to get to know me or show yourself to me, then I don't know if I really want to, I don't know if I really want to show you my wallet.
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair.
Right.
And I would say that at this point, you have a very forward face. So do I, right? Like we're out there every week talking to people, giving
Yes.
advice, putting ourselves out there. And I think that isn't just required, it is an obligation in 2023 and forward. I
Oh,
don't think that companies are going to be able to do business because the reason is that people want to know who they're doing business with. Like you just said, they want to know the CEO. It's not enough to hide behind your companies anymore. And so I think me and you are probably a little ahead of the curve, but it won't be long. You're going to see every company will have a podcast or a YouTube or something along those lines to have that outward face. And it's one of those things where the sooner that you're in that gate, the easier it's going to be to make an impact.
so 30 door knocks before somebody finally pays attention to somebody at cap. So basically, so those door knocks, I want to be specific here. That's either an email or a phone call or a fax or, but I'm being exaggerative, it's a method of somehow trying to get my attention at ABC company, right?
Absolutely. And you have to remember that with large scale supply chains, they're getting 100 reach outs a
Well,
day
sure
or
they
more.
are. Yes.
And so if you want to stand out, you have to be consistent. You have to be out there every week saying, "Hey, it's Kelly. I still want to meet with you. I look forward to it. We have products and services that make sense for you. And here they are. Looking forward to connecting." And yeah, like some it's sooner, Keith. Like I've had it where I've sent the first one came back and they're like,
Well,
"Yeah, we're
sure.
in. Let's book a meeting." And we've
Yes.
had some that we never got because we never got through. But on average, that is what it takes. And you know what the shitty statistic is? Most
Yeah.
people give up after the first try.
That was my next question, which was,
Yeah.
so I grew up in the world of Xerox sales. So I was trained, so like I'm ancient. I was born back in the 20s, right? So that's when we got in the horse and buggy, and, right? And we were trained to go and knock on left door, right door, because the horse can only get so
Sure.
far. So okay, the horse took you here, go knock on the door, left door, right door. But
Yeah.
what I learned back then, Kelly, sales is just absolutely the law of numbers. Talk to 10 people out of 10, certain percentage are going to be interested. Know the certain percentage, you got to get them. It's just a do, right? So that's why I'm fascinated to hear what you're saying right now, which is 30. So out of your, go ahead.
Sorry. So you said you're Gen X, right?
Yeah.
Okay, I'm a millennial, but on the tail end. So I was born in '88. So what about you?
I'm 72. I'm 52 years
Oh,
old.
okay.
Yeah.
Oh shit, you look amazing. Good for
Thanks,
you,
man.
dude.
Appreciate that. Yeah. Appreciate that. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So we live in a world like you're right. It was the law of numbers before the internet, and now we have this amazing tool called LinkedIn, which has changed
Yes.
absolutely everything. And me and you, we both of our shows stream on LinkedIn. That is our playground. We love that place. It is the best place, period. It is the best social network, no brainer for all business, period. If you are doing any kind of business, you should be on LinkedIn. It's where business is happening. And COVID changed it. Our whole view before COVID was socials are cool, but you don't really need them. They're just some place where you can put up a post once a week and get a little bit of brand recognition. It's gone from that to the main place to get brand recognition. And you really had to change the way that you were thinking about socials, COVID and on. And since that point, LinkedIn has doubled or tripled in popularity. And so you talked about this like broad scope strategy, and you're absolutely right. I think cold call, when we think of cold call, that's what we think of. Picking up a phone and being like, today I'm going to do this soul crushing 200 phone calls and I'm going to cry myself to sleep at night. Right.
But I mean cold calling more like I would say cold touching, like touching, whether it's touching somebody on Instagram or on LinkedIn or X, but it's strategically touching your ICP, your ideal customer profile. Is that, am I thinking the same way as you?
Absolutely. And there's going to be people listening right now, Keith, that say 30 reach outs. Like you booked a meeting with 30 reach outs to a large scale oil and gas company because they're thinking, shit, we've made 200 calls, or like it used to take that amount of time to get there.
Yeah.
You're right. So what's happened now is that we can utilize LinkedIn in a completely different way. And so what we always do, and step one of our CRM process is our digital introduction stage. So we talk about this on the show all the time, the active marketing process, and we can touch on that if we have time. But our step one is always, once we've identified the company, the location, the industry, and the right person in that organization, is to connect with them on LinkedIn and send them a very brief personal introduction to who is Kelly Kennedy. Oh, and by the way, I'm also working with this company. You might find them interested, and attach a brochure that really does that selling for you. But ultimately, the reason we use the brochure isn't really selling anything, but what it is doing is it's creating a warm contact. And so now that I know I have the right person at the organization, they've gotten a message from me, they know who Kelly Kennedy is, they've seen what our company does. Now, when I reach out to them via phone, which is what we have to do, active marketing, we can't be running from our phones or direct emails. This is still the best way to do business, period. And like you said, the most tactical and the most strategically cost effective as well. But we go after them that way. But now, when I've reached out to them, Keith, it's no longer cold. They know who I am. They know what my company does, and they are way more likely to book that meeting with me. And so we've been able to really shrink that amount of time that it used to take to book that meeting to something that is much more reasonable and gives everybody a small advantage if they are going to use that warm introduction stage.
I think you're doing without saying in a strategic way, I believe, maybe I'm wrong, but your podcast is a wonderful warm door for somebody to pay attention to Kelly and what Kelly's doing, and a nice way for you to introduce yourself and everything you're doing without actually selling them anything. Am I correct? Like that's
When
I know myself when I was first starting the
yeah.
show, and there was a few people I was trying to get in touch with for a variety of reasons. They were cold to my emails. But the moment that I said, "Hey, you want to be a guest on my show? I want to stroke your ego, and I want to talk about you, and I want to talk about your company, and I want to talk about blah, 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 blah." Quickly, people are like, "Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah." And it was a wonderful way to turn it all around, which was the show became the soft entry point to a conversation, because who doesn't want to talk about themselves?
What's super interesting is when I started the show, I thought about it that way, but that's not actually what happened, which is crazy. Yeah, I like when I started the show, here was my thought, Keith. It's
Yeah.
like, okay, Kelly, we have to do something. It's 2023. We need that outward face. We need to start connecting with the world in a different way, because I'd never done that before. Like, I'm
Okay.
super introverted. I normally, like, I'd pick up my phone, I'd call a list of companies and say, "Hey, it's Kelly with Capital Business Development. This is what we do." And because that's the way we've done it forever. And my thought was, okay, it's 2023. We need that outward face. Let's just put out a podcast. Let's show that we actually know what we're talking about, and that we can help people. And dude, it turned into a completely different ball game. And even though we've had, I think at this point, over 60 expert guests on the Business Development Podcast, that isn't typically where it ends up going. Actually, it ends up going a lot more on the standpoint of, let me introduce you to these other
Wow.
people.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and so that was more so the avenue. And now that we obviously have that broad reach, most people know what the Business Development Podcast is if they're in business development, or if they are entrepreneurs of some level within North America at this point, or the
Yes.
world. The other day I was just looking, we've been a top 100 show in 29 countries worldwide.
That's awesome.
And we're
Good for you.
in It's crazy. It's crazy the reach that you have with these podcasts, with these videos, right? Like, it's absolutely unbelievable. When you start a show, in my case, talking to a wall in my basement, thinking, who in the world is even going to listen to this damn thing? Like, what are you doing, Kelly? To, yeah, like at this point, we're at 160,000 downloads. We've been a top show in 129 countries, or sorry, in 29 countries worldwide. And we're growing all the time. We were just nominated for Podcast of the Year from Quill Inc., and Interview Podcast of the Year from Quill Inc. We won Best Business Podcast 2023 in our inaugural year, which was bonkers. It's amazing the power of the internet, really, like when you think about that.
What do you credit the success of the podcast to, Kelly?
100%. There wasn't really much in that business development space that was designed to educate people on how to do business development. There's lots of shows talking about entrepreneurship, lots of shows talking about sales, but there wasn't anything giving people essentially a step by step on, if you follow this process, you will be successful. And one of the coolest things about the Business Development Podcast is how many companies, how many individuals have reached out and said, without this, I wouldn't have got that job. We wouldn't have been able to grow our company to where we're at. We wouldn't have achieved what we've achieved in the past bit. And we get those emails every week, Keith. It's absolutely bonkers.
So now you're monetizing it.
We are, yes.
You're monetizing it through sponsorship, correct?
Correct, yes.
Yeah. it would seem to me as an outsider looking in that you're developing and building yourself a nice community, and you might
Totally.
find yourself a way to build and monetize a nice community within that. Is that part of your monetization strategy as well, Kelly?
Only as long as it brings value, right?
Yes.
Everything that I do, I want it to be business development oriented. So, one of the things we've recently launched is our business development coaching. Right now, it's one on one, it's not group. It's designed to walk people through a business development process, implement it, and then handle any direct challenges.
Mhm.
It's 3 months, it's in and out. We'll get you in, we'll get you out. And then from there, you can just do what you need to do to provide that exponential value and build that company. But that was our next step in it. So we're doing that coaching. Obviously, we have the sponsorship advertising to any companies looking to make an impact and reach that executive audience. What we're finding, what surprised me was when I started the show, you would think that the people closest to you that you already know would be your biggest supporters, wouldn't you?
No, that's not how it works.
But that's not how it works at
No,
all. Like, I was
it's
introduced to people across this country. We have sponsors from Ontario. I was
yes,
just in Lethbridge because we have
yes,
two amazing sponsors out there. I got to
yes.
spend a day with them.
Isn't it
And
sad
dude,
though,
like,
actually, Kelly? Like it's actually, and I don't mean that, and I don't mean that as a shot to our circle amongst us, but it's the old cliche is that you have to leave home to gain the respect before you can come home and get the respect.
yeah, I think if anything, it's hopeful because what it shows you is you likely don't know your biggest supporters yet. And isn't that a little bit of something to look forward to?
Oh, interesting way to look at it. Yes. Yes. But yes. Yeah. I think it's because, at least from my POV, the ones around you just, this is not a shot. This is just a rhetorical you. The ones around you take you for granted. It's like, oh, this is Kelly doing his
Sure.
thing. Kelly's in his basement talking on the microphone. And yeah, there's people listening. And we get there's somebody in Lethbridge going, oh my God, this is a great show. Where did this come from? Who is this Kelly Kennedy guy? And it's because, but yet you're in your backyard, your circle just Kelly's just doing his thing. Kelly's just doing his thing. Like, really? You made a comment
Yeah,
saying you're introverted. So Kelly must be trying his extroverted thing doing his show. Right? Yet,
sure.
yet to the person who
Yeah.
doesn't know you and is listening to you, who's never met you, is drinking your Kool-Aid and is like, yeah, I like what that guy has to say. I want to buy that.
Yeah, and like I know that you're really authentic on this show, and I'm really authentic on my show. Like we're no holds barred, right? I tell you the
Yes.
good, the bad, the ugly.
Yes.
I don't hide the fact that I've struggled. I've struggled
Yes.
personally with stage fright, with meeting anxiety, with all sorts of problems. And I really try to normalize that on the business development podcast. And I think maybe what you were suggesting is that I think that people who listen to the show on some level get to know who Kelly is sometimes better than our closest people around us because I think I've been more vulnerable on the show than I've been in other places in my life.
So then why do you think that you're close? So what? So fair comment. I would agree with that. And oh man, we can unpack a lot here. And I want to unpack a lot here because I want to hang me into because you said you're an introvert and I am too. Yet
Yeah.
I had to find the courage 2 weeks ago to go to a Kentucky Derby party with whatever, 75 people at a house party. And I was like, and I had to,
Yeah. And it
but I did it.
probably wasn't easy, was it?
No, but once I got there, it was fine.
That's right. That's right. And so what we talk about on the business development podcast all the time is that you can go to 1,000 meetings. Like, dude, I still have meetings with people that I'm shaking in my boots that scared the bejesus out of me, right? Like that's never going to go away. But what you find is every time you put yourself in that uncomfortable situation, you get more comfortable with it. And does that mean that you will never have a fear? Absolutely not. Does that mean you'll never experience stage fright? Absolutely not. But you get better and better at handling those situations.
Yes.
And the growth that you get by taking that opportunity usually far outweighs any situation where if you just wouldn't have went, could have been better for you.
You strike me as somebody that the way that you were going to battle your stage fright and the way that you were going to battle being good at Kelly Kennedy behind the microphone was you just said to yourself, shit, I'm just going to do this. And I'm just
Yes,
going to keep doing it. And I'm just
that's
scaring
right.
the hell out of me. I'm just going to keep doing it. I'm right, ain't I?
Oh man, totally. And like, remember your first time behind this camera, behind this microphone. Is anybody going to care? Is anybody going to watch this thing? Who am I to do this? Like
Yes.
those were all questions that went through my mind. Am I good enough to do this? I know I'm good at business development, but am I good enough to teach the world? Those were all questions that went through my mind. And I remember listening back to my first episode, my second episode. I remember listening, I think it was my third episode, is like my least favorite. And I remember listening to that and just thinking, oh God, like, what am I doing? Why did I even do this? But now that I look back, it's like, holy crap, I would have never been able to experience all these amazing opportunities, meet all of these amazing people, have all of these blessings now that I have, if I wouldn't, or if I would have just gave up in that moment. And so much of life is just making the uncomfortable comfortable and recognizing that most things in life are going to start uncomfortable, but the more you put yourself in the situation, you will get better at it.
That has a lot really to do with business development, doesn't it? Because business development is
There's been a lot of uncomfortable. Yeah.
But that really is what business development is, though. Because it's about developing the business and going, okay, we're starting to get a little bit comfortable and complacent. Okay, start to develop again. You know what I mean? It's because if you're not always developing, so the opposite of developing is becoming comfortable and complacent. So the opposite. Right. So in my point of view, biz dev is about constantly churning it up. It's constantly working through the uncomfort.
Yeah. And I think we live in a time now where people are running from that uncomfort so much, right? They just want to buy LinkedIn ads. I want to buy LinkedIn ads. I want to buy Facebook ads. I want to just do Google AdWords and my phone will ring. And I don't have to go out and make those calls. I don't have to go out and send those emails or put myself in those uncomfortable meetings. Right? But the funny thing is that those companies are getting rich and they're not delivering the results that you deserve. And that's the downside, right? The only way that you are going to get the results that you want in your organization, and if I'm talking to my introverted founders and you guys are like, I don't want to do this, then you need to hire an organization such as Capital or a business development specialist. You need to put someone in your organization in charge of direct contact with your customers, because you're going to spend a lot of money. And if you are trying to generate business to business relationships are still best built in person. Trust is still best established in person. And so we have to go back. And like you said, like the 80s, right? We have to go back to picking up that phone. It's the things that people are not doing that we need to go back to. And so at Capital, we always advocate for 80% active marketing. This is direct contact, right? This is reaching out to an individual. It's making sure that you have the right person in the organization, making sure that your marketing material, that all your meeting requests are all going to the right person, but you are ultimately driving towards a face-to-face interaction where a relationship can be built and established, because that is the secret in the business to business world. And so at the end of the day, I just want people to be more effective. The reality is good business development should provide exponential value to its cost over time. And I'm seeing all of these Google ad spends, and I think you guys need to be more cognizant of, am I getting a good ROI on this? And in B2C, they probably are. That's its world, right? If you're selling to an end user, absolutely. Google ads, Facebook ads, LinkedIn ads, Instagram ads all day long, because you're getting the people where they're at. But most businesses, they need that trust to be established before they're going to make that big purchase. And those are still going to be done in person. And so you need that active marketing process to get you in front of people, to get you those face-to-face meetings.
I'm of the belief, Kelly, that tomorrow's business and tomorrow's businesses are really going to be valued on this idea of a house of personal brands, where it's buyers of businesses or buying of businesses from the brands of the human beings that are working there. Because I'm able to know so much about Kelly Kennedy now. Yeah. It's not just a flat piece of paper with some words. I'm really able to do some homework on who Kelly is. I'm really able to do some homework on Kelly and who his team is. I'm really able to get a sense of what his values are before I really want to perhaps engage. It wasn't always like that. And tomorrow's big companies are a collection of personal brands that make up the brand that is the connective tissue. Do you follow me?
I love that. Yeah. I do wonder though, like over time, is that not still a relationship? It's still relationship, right?
Yes. Yeah. And in a world that's pivoting continuously to video, it's this idea of building trust should be easier than ever, frankly. It should be easier than ever to build trust, because you have this thing in your pocket. What's the moment of truth? Was it 3 touch points 11 times, or how it's to build somebody's trust, right? It's never been easier to build trust. So to your point, if you're a CEO or a founder or a business development person that is scared to get out there and either pick up the phone or get behind the camera, I think you're going to have a tough time in 2024, 2026.
My argument would be is that you should probably do something else, right? Like, if you're not willing
Good
to
for
have that
you.
outward
Yes.
face,
Yes.
you probably are not going to be great at business development. And if you're a founder, that's fine, but you're going to have somebody at your organization who is willing to be the face. And I do think that more founders have to step up because we want to know who is actually behind these products.
So this is great. This is really great. So millennial, your generation, millennials, and I suspect you're probably talking to some of the Gen Zs underneath you. They're really wanting that human connection, aren't they?
Yes, yes. And I think they're struggling more than ever because they grew up in such a digital world. And it's not their fault, but I do think that we have some obligation to teach them how to generate relationships, how to communicate better.
Interesting. You see it as a problem, eh?
I think so. I think so. It's hard to say because I think we're still probably 10 to 15 years ahead of seeing the real problem. But I do worry that in a world where people only communicate digitally, that we're going to lose a lot of relationship and the ability to generate trust. So I think you're going to have a whole bunch of people that are untrusting, Keith, and no idea on how to fix that problem.
It's interesting. I think video is the first start of that, and I think you're seeing that happening right now. As I think the more people that embrace video, the quicker. In a world of AI generated text, and I know AI generated everything, we really got to find ways to connect with the human being to build that trust.
Yeah, and obviously we're right in the beginning stages of AI, and who knows what this looks like 5 years from now. But me and you both know it's going to be completely different. Me and you both know how much AI we
Yes.
utilize in the production of our shows, even.
Yes.
And it's like, it's amazing. It's growing so quickly. It's like when the iPhone came out, we could have never known the impact that it would have on the world. That 20 years later, everyone would have one. Everyone would be walking around with a supercomputer with every app in the world on it. Who knows, dude? Like AI could be, I think it's one of those things that you have to be on top of it because you can't get left behind. But at the same time, it's hard to say right now what direction it's going to go or to even understand the potential impact.
How do you embrace it for running your podcast, Kel?
We utilize it a lot just for obviously video production, clips, things along those lines.
Yep.
Obviously, all of our transcripts are run through AI. I
Yep.
double check them, but ultimately AI initially. We utilize it for some of the copy, not all of the copy, because I still like to be a human. And I always tell people if
Yes.
you are using AI for copy,
Yeah.
stop just copy and pasting it and start putting yourself back into it. It's great to take snippets out of because I agree, it can make some hella good pitches. But at the same time, it's usually making a great pitch in a way you wouldn't do it. So you need to find a way to put you back in it every time. But as
Yeah.
long as people are doing that, I think it has lots of applications on that front. And we're looking for new applications all the time. At Capital, we're open to finding new solutions that make us more effective always. And I tell my employees all the time, if you see something great, tell me about it. I want to know about it. But I think the problem with AI right now is they're throwing out so much crap that it's hard to tell what one is noise and what one is making a real impact. Do
Well,
you
and
struggle with that at all on your team?
I do, and what becomes tantalizing is not tantalizing, opposite. It's making a commitment to a workflow and not always moving to the next one because there's so many shiny objects. Hey, try this one, try this. There's a new workflow for this, and so I'm using this tool. I've got a lot of hours invested into it, and it's working really well.
Yeah.
And I know they keep adding the AI tools to it, and it's going to keep getting better. Because you can be switching left and right with these AI.
Oh man.
Honest to God.
Yeah, yeah. And the problem too is it feels like these like subscriptions are starting to just get higher and higher and higher. And you're right,
Yes.
they're having overlapping things, but they usually have one or two things that you need.
Yes.
And so suddenly you have like 8 programs that can do the same thing, but because they have this one thing that the other ones don't, you stick with it. Like this like subscription world we're ending up in is absolutely bonkers.
Tell me so what does that mean when you say it's absolutely bonkers? Because you get the credit card statement today and you're like, oh my God, I got all these subscriptions.
Yeah. At this point, we're doing reviews of like, what can we axe pretty regularly because as a small organization, we have to be budget conscious all the time.
I'm doing
And
the
I think
same.
I think that's important for all companies to be consistently reviewing what are your subscriptions? Are they driving the bottom line? Are they actually putting money back in your pocket? Because I think we have a lot of subscriptions that are nice to haves, not need to haves. And in a world where these subscriptions are just getting more and more, you need to make sure that every subscription you have is actually going to be putting dollars back into your pocket, not just taking them.
And Kelly, one of the things that I don't know if it's spoken about enough, and people aren't going to like me talking about this, but I will talk about it, is the time game with subscriptions, right?
Mhm.
If you have a bunch of work to do, you can play the time game. You grab your subscription, you get a bunch of work to do, and you cancel the subscription once you add it. So you don't get stuck with it for the next month. Because sometimes we need tools where we think we need them for months on months, but
Yeah,
you need it right now. Then you're like,
that's
okay,
right.
then like, wait a minute, we haven't used it for 3 weeks, but we got billed for the next month. Okay, we'll
Yeah,
use
yeah.
if you can plan proactively, in my experience, you can get a bunch of work done, cancel the sub, and then reactivate it again at a different date where you maybe not using it for, because you really have to use it every single day to get the full
Yeah.
value out of it. And you think about it. And these
Yeah, you
things
really
can
do.
fall through the cracks where it's like, oh, we haven't used it in 3 weeks. We're getting billed for it.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
And some of those renewals aren't cheap.
no,
Yeah.
no.
Especially for your Adobe products.
Yes. So if you're sitting back
Yeah.
going, okay, we're not going to use this for the next couple of months, well, then use it, put it on a. And here's the funny thing, too, right? When you cancel it, most often than not, they're, oh, hey, Kelly, will you stick around for, here's an offer to stick around for 50% off if you stick. Like the offers they ask you to stick around if you're going to cancel are sometimes
Yeah.
quite substantial as
Yeah.
well. So
That's right. Yeah.
it's just an awareness game from my point of view, anyways. So
Yeah. I want to hear what you were saying earlier. You mentioned and I can actually agree with you because we're seeing so many companies starting podcasts now. What's your take on this new wave? Because you're right, like 2023, 2024 has kicked in this new wave. We've had multiple guests of the show now launch their own shows, which, you know, and I'm super supportive of, being that we've had great success with ours and most of them are amazing people and I've really enjoyed chatting with them and wish them the best of luck. And I've even been on a couple of their shows. Me and Shelby were talking, my fiance were talking about this the other day, and we were talking about what happens when everybody starts their own show. Like, obviously, there is going to be that critical mass point. What's your take on that?
So I think anybody starting a podcast today might as well stop because you're starting 1980. Now I'll get some context to it. If you're doing a live streaming show with video, keep going.
Yeah.
But if you're just recording for the sake of recording, then don't waste your time. Like, actually, don't waste your time. Go spend time with your kids. Go spend time with your wife, your mother and father. Go build your business. But if you're just going to sit behind the microphone every now and then and have a conversation, don't waste your time. Because there's guys like Kelly Kennedy and Keith Bilous who do this full time. That will put you to sleep. Like, because don't waste your time. And we got video, we got production, and I'm trying to be full of grace, but I'm trying to be fully honest here. Do not waste your time. Don't start a podcast. Start a live conversation, because it ends up being a podcast anyways. That's what people I get frustrated with. Keith, why are you going live? Because I'm recording it anyways. Like, I'm actually killing two birds with one stone. Because I could actually make this an AMA. People want to tune in and have a conversation. It's great. I come from the world of live. And here's where I rant. Two weeks ago, you probably saw the cultural event that happened across the world that nobody paid attention to, that was actually disguised as a technology event. It was the roast of Tom Brady. You know what I'm talking about, right?
I do.
But you know what I'm really talking about, right?
No, I watched. I knew about it. I haven't seen it yet.
So it has nothing to do with Tom Brady. And it has nothing to do with the roast of Tom Brady. But that event is a prediction of the future, which is they just needed to prove they can do that for 3 hours before they go put their hands up and say, hey, Super Bowl? Yes. We want a bid to run you on Netflix, the largest live streaming event in the world. Netflix is moving every direction towards live cultural events because that's where money is made. Where? Live. What's Keith do? Live. What's Kelly do? Live. What's podcast do? Recorded. So the big dollars in the future, if you can't get comfortable going live behind a camera, don't waste your time. Just look at Netflix. Okay. Look at So Netflix is no Netflix. So Kelly, technology is what gave us podcasts, because we weren't streaming on Blackberries and on iPhones when they first came out. We're not going backwards to downloading 17,000 songs. Netflix is closer to HBO from 1980 than Netflix was when it came out. Netflix doesn't give you binge watch content because doesn't work for their business model anymore. No, their business model is, we want you to stick around as a subscriber, so we're going to drop shows every single week. Oh, like 1980 television. Mark my words, my friend. Mark my words, my friend. Mark my words, my friend. Every streaming platform is going to live. Society is not linear. Society is cyclical. That's what my live shows. People aren't double negative. people aren't consuming less content. No, they're consuming more than ever.
Yes,
I'm building
I agree.
trust. I'm building
Yeah.
trust every single day by going live. Like Wolf
Yes.
Blitzer, like Lloyd Robertson, like Peter Mansbridge, Uncle Keith showing up.
Yeah, and you're right. It takes a special person to be
Yes.
brave enough to come on and do this, right? Like live is a completely different world. You can't go back and change what you said. At the end of the day, it is what it is, and it does take bravery. I'm going to go back and say I'm not sure that I completely agree with you that it's dead
Yeah.
yet. I think we're still, I think for business podcasts, for the people that are willing to put in the time, and you talked about that.
Yes.
I agree with you. I don't think the people that are going to hop on whenever they feel like it and release a show and just post that up there for content. Yeah, I agree. That's not for you. That is not what a good podcast or a good video event or whatever is.
Yes.
You need to be consistent with it,
Yes.
and you need to have a frequency that is higher than the rest.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
It's so funny. When I started the business development podcast, I accidentally picked a frequency, not knowing. I knew that I need to pick a frequency, but I had no idea what it was going to take to actually upkeep that frequency. Dude,
Right.
we put out 2 shows a week for almost a year and a half, and I have not missed one. And that is what has shot us up so high. That is what has made us so successful, is that all the algorithms picked that up and said, this guy's putting out consistent content. We're going to promote him. People are getting used to being able to come back every Wednesday and Sunday to a brand new business development podcast show. They can depend on it.
Yes.
That is what grows a show. And I would say you can still have success with an audio show, but you have to be able to commit to a really high frequency, and you have to be able to produce it on high quality on a consistent basis. If the answer is yes to those things, you can still have success. And it still takes a little bit of luck, and it still takes a lot of marketing. And there's no two ways about that.
Yeah. Yeah. I would not disagree with those statements. And if podcasts are songs in the music industry, they don't make the artist any money, but they keep their name out in front of somebody, and they stay in the stream of consciousness. But staying in front of your audience is not a nice to have in 2024 and 2025. You have to stay in front of your audience. The attention.
Yeah, and you talked about monetization, and monetization is something that we had hoped for from the beginning, right?
Okay.
I recognize that as a business producing a show, it's taking a lot of time, a lot of effort, it's costing a lot of money. And at some point, you need to be rewarded for your efforts. Okay.
Mhm.
I don't care. There's no free podcast on earth that is going to go endlessly, because it's people don't recognize how much effort goes into producing amazing content. And I know for you, creating a beautiful video like this with the amazing email marketing campaigns that you have, my God, your marketing spend must be through the roof trying to make sure that all that stuff gets done effectively. And I think it's just important for people to recognize that it's not easy. It's not an overnight thing. It takes a lot of practice. It takes a lot of learning. Everything I've learned the hard way. I even produced my own damn show, and I got pretty damn good at it too.
Yes.
But it took a lot of learning to get it to where it is today.
Yes.
And frankly, I scrapped almost everything I knew about 2 months ago and started fresh, because I recognized that for the next phase of this show, I needed a completely different skill set with a completely different music editor. And so
good for you.
The reality, yeah, it was scary as shit, but we did it.
No, but good for you for having. So what I'm most curious about, Kelly, and I want to be respectful of your time, so we'll wrap up here in a couple moments if we may. But what I'm most curious about is you had the awareness to pause and say, I need to rejig.
What I recognized was the system that we had wasn't going to take us to the next level. And so if I wanted to take it to the next level, we had to upgrade, and it was going to require a lot of learning. We hired a consultant, we learned it, we moved forward, right? But it's the realization that you can do it, but you have to put everything into it. You have to say, you know what? This is going to be hard. It's not going to grow as fast as I hoped. And especially if I want to do it organically, or if I want to do it, it's not going to be an overnight success. And you have to be okay with that. And as long as you can be okay with that, you can pick a cadence you can stick with, you produce good content, and you produce it dependably and at a fast cadence. Yeah, I think you can have amazing success. And I would encourage people to do it. But make sure that you are thinking about the amount of time, and move yourself towards a situation where hopefully at some point you can get some type of monetary reward for that work. And so sponsorship is amazing. You asked about sponsorship. We implemented it in October, and you know who bought on, Keith? Our amazing listeners. Almost all of our sponsors are fans of the show, who also have amazing businesses.
Awesome.
And so that's it. Figure out who those people are for you. But Yeah, and it was people who, like I said, I would have never met without the show, and I'm blessed to have met because of the show. And so there's a lot of amazing things that happen for you too when you're willing to put yourself out there.
That for me, Kelly Kennedy, has been the greatest joy for me, has been the incredible human beings that I'm fortunate to meet every single day. I do a live show here at noon every single day. I got the morning show now that I launched the morning show, Kelly, purely on a hunch of humans' habits. I'll
Yeah.
quickly share with you. I'm like, okay, so humans always either turn morning radio on or turn morning television on or check their socials. And I thought, if I stream into people's socials during the morning, will they come check me out? They do. And next thing you're like, okay, this is just like your regular, and the regular people are
Yeah.
starting to tune in. And those, because you know what it is, Kelly, just habits.
Yes.
Right. Just finding somebody's habits and staying in front of them. Right? But it's been really rewarding meeting really incredible humans, having these incredible conversations. Like now when we're done, I typically will go upstairs or go sit somewhere. Like I have, maybe you're the same way, where I got to go, oh, okay. Cause I'm just,
Yeah.
well, cause I'm just so into the dialogue. I
Yeah.
actively listen. I pay attention. I thoroughly enjoy it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah. I don't know about you, but I usually learn more from a
Yes.
re-listen to even my own interviews, because in the moment you're so engaged that I find sometimes that I can miss even some of the more
Yes.
important things. I have to go back and listen twice.
Can I share a secret with you? I'll show you a business hack that I've been using, and I'll share it with you now.
Sure.
So I have recently engaged K Nation. Turn your ears off because I can't share all my business tips because I'm going to sell you guys this one day. So turn your ears off. All right, there you go. Okay. All right, Kennedy. So I've been taking all my shows and I've been uploading them into Otter.ai. So not only do I use every other AI platform for my shows, but Otter I'm purely using to grab all of my conversations, look back on conversations I have with my guests. They've now added some AI features to it that allow me to even converse with my conversations, amalgamate them all. But I'm not so much excited about what I can do with it now is what I can do with it in a year, 2 or 3 years from now. Because every single conversation I'm having, I'm throwing into Otter. And man, the profile it's building for me with my guests, it's exceptional.
Yeah.
So after I chat, I'll load it up there. Later today, I'll go back and revisit it. I'll highlight it. It pulls the highlights out for me. But it's really it's helped my marketing. It's helped me do things very personal that I would not be able to do because it just take too much time. If you think about it this way, and I don't know how many people are thinking about it this way, but until I started playing with this, the conversation we're having is data. There's value in this data. So the more conversations we have, and I know you're conversing every single day, you think over time what you're going to get out of that. I'm already finding I'm getting LinkedIn posts out of some of my conversations that didn't even know it existed. I'm like, oh my goodness, yes, that came from my chat with that guy there. I'm grabbing it, using it, and repurposing it.
Yeah, we do the same thing similar. We record through riverside.fm. I don't know if you've tried that platform, but we've done a lot with that. But yeah, it's amazing in the ability to keep great video and great audio connection. But yeah, it definitely leaves a little bit to be desired on the AI front. But like I said, things are changing all the time.
There you go. There you go.
Yeah.
Kelly Kennedy, thanks for jumping into the lab to me today. Where can Nation find you? How can they get a hold of you? And is there anything I didn't ask you about that you want to make sure people know about before we say goodbye?
No, not at all. You can find me on the Business Development Podcast, anywhere that you guys listen to your favorite podcasts. Also, you can find me at LinkedIn. So Kelly Kennedy at LinkedIn, and come say hi.
Awesome. Awesome. Kelly, I'm going to put you back in the green room. I'm going to say goodbye to the audience. I'm going to come back and walk you politely out the door. All right.
Amazing.
All right. Hang tight, my friend. We are going to do this. Do this. There we go. Oh, that's pretty good. Boom. All right. A good conversation with Kelly Kennedy in the business development side of things here in the lab. Rocking and rolling. If you are running a business, Kelly said it clearly. Got to get your face out there. Got to get your face in front of your customers. Podcast, video cast, get in front, build trust, knock on doors. You heard what he had to say. 30 touches before he made some action. What's that he say? Yeah. Go back and listen. 12 minutes, 15 minutes into the show. You will learn what it takes to get a door open. All right, I'm going to get out of here. I'm back tomorrow morning. Mornings in the lab with myself, C. Marty Fit, a bunch of friends. We got guests tomorrow morning. Come join us. And then tomorrow at noon, I have in here the lab for another show live in the lab. We have, hold on a second here, Nation. I got to find it because I'm excited about this one tomorrow. I think I got an F-18 fighter jet guy, another guy who sells fighter jets for a living. Brian Smeltzer joining me tomorrow. Brain Builder. That's what he is. Brain Builder. Brian Smeltzer tomorrow in the lab. And of course, mornings in the lab, Nathan Hirsch joining me. All right, I'm getting out of here. I'm going to walk Kelly out of the door. We'll see you guys. We'll see you in the morning.